In the last section, we added some styling to our view tag. Remember, the purpose of the view tag was just to position the text element correctly on the screen. The text tag can't really position itself. We also set a background color on the view tag, and so now it's time to really make use of the view tag to position the album's text right in the center middle here. Positioning elements in React Native is a tricky little subject, and I normally wouldn't bring styling up so early in a course, except for the fact that styling is really at the core of React Native, and it's, for me personally, one of the hardest challenges or most difficult aspects of React Native. And so that's why we're tackling this nice and early. So by to use positioning inside of React Native, we use a technique called Flexbox. Now the term Flexbox is a reference to how we will position elements. It's kind of a CSS positioning technology. If you've worked with Flexbox in normal CSS before on standard web apps, it mostly works the same way here. There's a couple of very small differences that I'll point out over time. So let me give you a plain text definition of Flexbox. Flexbox is a system of positioning elements within a container. In our case, we have a containing element of the view and the child element of the text. We can use Flexbox to tell React Native how we want to position the text tag within the overall view tag. So let's check out a couple diagrams to get a little bit better idea of how this works. So by default, I want to first make it really clear everything in React Native gets positioned to the top left of its parent, just as you would expect with normal HTML. So if we do not finagle with the view or the text at any point in time, it's going to look exactly like this. The text albums is going to appear at the top left-hand side of the overall view container. So this kind of, orangey looking color right here is supposed to be the view container. And so if we look at the simulator right now, yeah, that's definitely the case. It's appearing at the top left of the view. So there are two properties that we need to be aware of to get our text to be centered in the very middle of the view. The first is justify content, and the second is align items. These are two property names that we'll use inside of our styling object to get the text tag to move to the center of the view tag. So let's examine both these properties. First, we're going to start off with the justify content property. The justify content property is used to position elements in the vertical direction. So to move something from the very top left to say downwards. Now I say, let me throw out one small caveat here. Usually the justify content property is used to position elements in the vertical direction. There is one case in which it behaves a little bit differently. That's all I want to say right now, and I'm only saying that because if you're familiar with Flexbox, you're probably gritting your teeth and saying, Steven, that's not the only thing justify content does. But again, forget that. Let's just focus on, in context of right now, what justify content does. So we can give justify content a couple of different values to change where it places our content. If we give it the string flex-end, it will push our text down to the very bottom. Likewise, we can give it center as a string, and it will push the element to the very center middle, but still all the way to the left-hand side. Justify content right now is not moving our element from the left to the right. Finally, or the last one that's really relevant right now, there's a couple others that we'll cover later on in the course, is justify content flex-start. And that behaves much in the same as the default, which is to not provide a justify content property at all, in which case it will just appear on the very top. So you won't find us using flex start too often because that's generally the default behavior anyways. So there's a couple of other items as well, like I mentioned, that we'll figure out later on as we move through the course. So this is justify content. Again, it's to move elements up and down. The second property that we want to be aware of is the align items property. With align items, we position elements in the horizontal direction. So we're talking about moving the text from left to right. We have much the same properties as with justify content. We can say start, and it'll start at the very left. We can use center to center it, and we can use end to push it all the way to the far right-hand side. So again, whereas justify content is about manipulating items in the up and down direction, align items is about manipulating it in the left and right. So the summary here is that we can combine justify content and align items to exactly center an item in a container. Again, that's not all there is to Flexbox, but it is all we need to know for right now. So let's take what we've learned in this section and apply it to our header component in the next section.